There are tricksters and con men trying to take our savings from us. And every year, a shocking 3.2 million people fall for their devious and ingenious scams.
Coming up, the dangers of falling in love over the internet.
You feel like you've let people down, you've let your family down.
Plus, we look at the scourge of scam mail and see just how it can devastate someone's life.
I would have quite gladly have given them everything just to get my mother back. They stole her from me.
Well, I'm here to tell you what the con man doesn't want you to know. How to stay one step ahead of the game and not get scammed.
If, as the song says, love is all around, then why can it be so hard to find? The internet can offer the answer, of course, but scammers have cottoned on to this, and over the last few years, the Serious Organised Crime Agency, or SOCA, have seen a big rise in online romance scams.
This is a tens of millions of pounds of problem to the United Kingdom. Very typically, what will happen is somebody will be either contacted, either because they've gone onto a website, a dating site, or a Lonely Hearts site, something like that. And they'll be contacted by somebody who will start to befriend them.
But it's not just dating websites that are used by scammers to close in on potential targets. Social networking sites used to just be for the technologically savvy, but not anymore. They're for everyone, and that includes scam artists. Your hobbies, your beliefs, your interests, they're all things that a scam artist can use to build up a picture of their next target. 32-year-old Mireille is single and had just started looking into internet dating when, out of the blue, a man calling himself Nelson contacted her on Facebook.
Hello, are you Mireille?
I am, yeah.
How you doing? Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's Penny.
Is she all right out?
Yeah, Penny. Come on, inside.
Come on, we've got to hear a story, Penny.
Just a general message saying what his name was, and he was a soldier, US soldier, and he just noticed me and thought he'd like to start chatting to me and if I, was interested.
Nelson told Mireille he was an American soldier serving at their army base in Nigeria. What Mireille didn't know was that he was a sophisticated scam artist and that she was well and truly in his sights.
They often say, I'm in the army, quite often the American army, and they're based in Iraq or Afghanistan. This immediately raises the emotional content because you think, wow, a soldier, it's exciting. And as that rises, so your defences go down a little bit.
When they're scouting for targets, con men are looking for the chinks in somebody's armour, something to exploit. Personal information on sites such as Facebook gives them all they need to establish common ground with their victims.
What sort of information did you put on Facebook? What was available for other people to see?
Being single, female, Christian. You could see that I was single and a Christian. That was probably about the main thing and the two main things he used, really.
They seem like two fairly harmless pieces of information, don't they? But to the scammer, they were just the opening he needed. As the pair began exchanging messages, he told her he was also a Christian and even quoted passages from the Bible. It was all music to Mireille's ears.
And how quickly did things move?
It just went so quickly. Things just happened really fast. It all felt so real and so right. It was just everything that I'd wanted. That he was a Christian. He was a man of law, as it was.
Protector.
Yeah.
A defender.
Well, yeah.
When it's a scam, they rapidly fall in love with you. They rapidly want to meet you. So these are the warning signs that people should be looking for. It's not a natural progression of any sort of a relationship which has started like that.
And Nelson certainly wasn't playing hard to get. He quickly moved out of the confines of the internet and started chatting to Mireille on the phone. It's the scammer's favourite method of communication. There's no record of what's being said, and you can use the cost of the call to get onto the real subject, asking for money.
Can you describe to me how he would speak to you? Because you're speaking to supposedly an American. How did he sound?
Well, when I spoke to him, he sounded American. There was a second accent, which freaked me out a bit, but it sounded a bit Spanish. And he said his mother was Mexican and his father was American. Not unusual for me. My mother's French, my father's British. I'm South African, so that wasn't unusual or weird. So I just went, oh, OK. You know, didn't question it.
Smitten, Murray was being sucked in fast. The time for Nelson to get down to business.
They will invariably ask for some sort of financial assistance, maybe straight up for money. They might ask for money to help with a visa. It might be, can you send me £30 so that I can charge up my mobile phone so that I can ring you? But it escalates.
Sure enough, following the scammer's textbook to a T, Nelson caught Murray off guard one day. He said that he was really down, that he and his fellow soldiers were unable to get into their bank accounts, and that Murray could sort this out if she could just send him some money.
I kind of could see where it was headed, so I tried to divert as much as I could by saying, well, you know, surely the army can't just leave you guys without, you know, being able to access your money. They should be able to give you money. No, they're not. You don't understand. It's not this, you know, it's not right here, blah, blah, blah. We're in the middle of a war zone here.
Murray didn't cough up the cash right away. Suspicious, she decided to do some digging of her own.
So you're thinking, well, you know, I'm going to do some homework.
I researched into the US Army, their badges. I noticed on the photo it didn't say Nelson. It said something else, but it was too crinkled for me to actually make out a full name. So I questioned things like that. I questioned his rank, because the rank on his hat wasn't what he was saying either.
For every question, Nelson had a ready-made answer. He explained that in one snap he was wearing another soldier's jacket, and that the one showing a different rank was an old photo. Nelson then used Murray's own suspicions to pressure her into trusting him and committing even further to the relationship.
He went on a lot about me trusting him. Trust was a big issue in almost all our conversation that he kept bringing up. You've got to trust me. Don't you trust me? Why don't you trust me? You need to trust me. Felt like I was a bit backed in a corner, and I was battling financially a bit as well, and I thought, well, what do? I can't leave him.
Eventually, Murray caved in and sent £100 for Nelson to pick up through the Western Union cash transfer service.
And I thought, right, well, this will be it. If I didn't hear from him again after this money, then I knew that that's what it was.
So, in a weird way, you sending him money was a test of your trust in him.
Yeah, it's exactly how I described it to someone.
Nelson now had Murray where he wanted her. With the promise of more money to be made, he wasn't going to go anywhere. He called back full of gratitude. Murray started to believe that this was the real deal.
I told my mum, and for the first time in any relationship I've ever had, she was excited. Oh, I think my mum wanted to believe that so much was happening, because it kind of happened. Well, it happened for my parents, and my parents were engaged within 3 weeks, and I've been married for 35 years now.
So you looked at your parents' relationship and thought, well, look, it's not so crazy, because it worked for them.
Yeah.
Another week went by, and Nelson decided it was time to really ramp up this scam. He told Murray he wanted to come and see her. Of course, there was one teeny-weeny catch.
He said he'd been given leave, and that he couldn't access his account. But I thought when he had mentioned that he got leave and he was coming, that he had sorted that out. I didn't expect him to want me to help him again.
Nelson was really going for the jackpot. He asked Murray to send £700 to pay for his plane ticket. This was crunch time.
And I just said, I haven't got that kind of money, I just don't. And he got really, at one point, really frustrated, and I went, you know, don't get upset with me because I'm trying. You need to understand this is a lot of money, and I am worried and scared about sending this kind of money. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I know, I really care about you, and we're going to sort it out, and it's all going to be fine. And so I stopped direct debits. I just stopped everything, any action going in and out my bank account, just stopped everything. Went and drew the money out and went down to Western Union, and even the lady at Western Union said to me, are you okay with sending this? And I went, I'm not okay with it, it's a lot of money.
But you carried on anyway?
I just felt like it was a test, it was just testing, you know. And then again, it was about my trust, having to prove my trust, and it was a test. And what if this was right, and what if I was being tested? And then I thought, well, he'll do a runner, surely, after that. But he didn't. He was still there, and he got closer to booking, and said he'd booked his ticket.
To prove his commitment, Nelson even sent through a supposed confirmation of his flight details.
Tell me what your feelings were like at that stage.
I got more and more excited, and we got more and more excited, and spoke up until the day he was going to be leaving.
But in an unbelievably cruel trick used by scammers to raise the stakes, Mireille received some shocking news.
I got a text message at 11 o'clock at night to say that he'd been in a really bad accident, and that he was in critical condition.
I mean, that's a massive shock.
It was.
You've gone from being really excited about, you know, a new life together with this guy to suddenly having terrible pictures of him on a hospital bed.
I couldn't talk. I was just frantically trying to get the internet up so I could get telephone numbers for this Nigerian hospital to ring, and then trying to find the numbers for the American Army, and I was just frantic.
When she finally got hold of them, the American Army gave her the hard facts. They had no record of her soldier, Nelson. He simply didn't exist. Mireille was starting to realise she'd been tricked, but the people behind this elaborate scam weren't about to give up.
Sometimes these people will say, yes, I'm sorry about that, and it was a fraud, and I'm not that American soldier, I am this person, but I'm very poor. But actually, I do really love you. And they say, see, he really does like me, and you think, no, please don't do this. That's not right.
A man calling himself Paul and claiming to be Nelson's doctor in the critical care ward started sending texts to Mireille throughout the night. When he rang in the morning, she heard a familiar voice at the end of the line.
I recognised the guy's voice to be like a Mexican accent, but no American accent. And I said to him, I recognise your voice. I know who I'm talking to. And I'm sorry, madam, but I've never spoken to you before.
Yes, it was our con man, still trying it on. And still pretending to be a doctor, he emailed asking for money to help with treatment costs. But for Mireille, the penny had well and truly dropped. There was no doctor. And there wasn't, and never had been, a soldier called Nelson who loved her. Mireille was conned out of £800, but she's not alone. Others have been stung for much higher amounts by romance scams.
We have had a victim that's lost nearly £250,000.
It's a global racket, and the challenge for soccer is to try and find the people behind it.
The real perpetrators can be anywhere. They are sitting at the end of a laptop, plugged into a Wi-Fi system. So we have managed to devise methods where we can intercept the links between the criminal and the victim. We do have a particular problem from West Africa, but we know that it comes from Eastern Europe as well. And in West Africa, we have arrested several individuals who are key to this, including one who was living in a house that was worth £1 million, and he had over £1 million going through his bank account, and that was just from UK victims.
But for the victims of these robbing Romeos, such as Mireille, it's the emotional cost rather than the money that's hardest to bear.
You feel like you've let people down, you've let your family down.
When my mum found out, she was devastated. And Sorry?
Mireille, you haven't done anything wrong, you know that. All you've done is trust somebody because their business, you know, and it's a horrible, cruel business, is to gain people's trust because they're very good at it.
Oh, he was.
And you're so lovely. You know, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a great fella at some point. There's nothing to do with that, you know.
It's all right.
Soccer and other agencies are starting to make real progress in tackling these scams, but they're reliant on victims like Mireille, who have the courage to come forward and tell their story.
We need to know how much of it is happening, who is doing it, and we can only get there by starting at the very, very bottom, and that is when a victim becomes a victim.
So how can you avoid being suckered into the world of romance scams?
The first thing I say to anybody in anything like this, and I would say this is number one, is don't send any money.
It may sound obvious, but no matter how much these people tug at your heartstrings and how much it feels like a real connection, they're only interested in one thing.
Secondly, never give your own details out.
And that means mobile phone number, address and email. You should also check your privacy settings when using sites like Facebook. Many dating websites actually look for scams, but they can only see what's happening on their own site. So be wary if someone wants to chat elsewhere. And to repeat...
Third, don't send any money. I know it was number one, but it's that important.
I'd say if you were contacted by somebody, whether it's through the internet, on a Facebook or just a normal chat site or even internet dating, and you don't feel right about it, talk to your family, speak to your friends, listen to their advice. Anything that doesn't feel right is use your head, not your heart.
No. Junk mail. I mean, it may be annoying, but mostly it's harmless. Then the scam mail, completely different. In 1 year, in the UK alone, we got scammed out of £3.5 billion thanks to scam mail. And this is how it typically works. A letter comes through the door with the exciting news that you've won a huge cash prize. The letter suggests that all you need to do is pay a small fee and you'll receive your winnings. So you pay the fee, but your cash prize never comes. Instead, the scammers will just send you more and more letters. Scam mail, or mass marketing fraud as it's also known, is often targeted at elderly people, and the effects can be all-consuming. These shocking images were filmed by Marilyn Baldwin. Her mother Jessica was tormented by scam mail for 5 years, and this distressing footage shows her in the grip of the scam.
My mother was first drawn into this 5 years before she died. She received a letter. This letter told her that she'd won a competition and all she had to do to claim it was to send off a small fee, which my mother did. And as a result of this, her name got put on what's called a suckers list. This list got sold to other criminals all over the world, and basically she got bombarded with scam mail. The scam mail started to increase until probably about a year down the line, or maybe not even that. She was getting around 30 pieces a day. The house started filling up with scam mail. It was literally everywhere. It was in cupboards, drawers, the shed, under the bed. She got it everywhere.
Marilyn wanted people to see this footage to show the devastating impact that scam mail can have.
And do you think you've won on this one?
I know I've won it.
How sure are you?
I'm 100% sure with that. 100%. You think I'm a nutcase? I'm not.
No, but I'm the one trying to help. They're the ones...
You're not helping me. I just want to get on with my own private line.
The contents of these letters ranged from fake prize draw competitions to supposed clairvoyants asking for cash in exchange for good luck trinkets.
We tried to stop her. We tried to explain to her that this mail wasn't genuine, but she just couldn't see it. It was almost like they trapped her. She was in this fictitious world that they'd created with the mail. She'd got this sort of air about her that, you know, I've won the money and it's just a matter of time before it comes. She actually thought she was rich in a strange way, even though she hadn't received anything.
Jessica remained under the spell of the scam artists until just before she died in 2007.
It's difficult to say how much money she lost because it's really untraceable. She was sending cash, postal orders, she was making money transfers. I always say it could have been anything up to £50,000, but the truth is I couldn't really give a figure. But it's not the money that is the main issue, it's actually the emotional distress that this kind of mail's causing. I think when my mum was going through this, I would have quite gladly have given them the house and everything. They could have taken everything just to get my mother back. They stole her from me.
Mass marketing fraud is a nationwide problem. In Portsmouth, Trading Standards officers Laura Small and Holly Shelbourne recently seized a huge haul of scam mail, which they're now trying to wade through.
These two boxes here are actually completely unsorted mail, and then the other boxes here are sorted into categories.
It's a shocking amount of mail, and all of these boxes were found in one private house belonging to a pensioner called Mrs. Knox.
When it comes to mass marketing scams, I would say that most of our victims are socially isolated, so unfortunately they don't have their friends and family coming to see them every day. It could just be that their carers come to see them, and that's when they can fall through the net, and they can't check with anybody to make sure that they're not replying to things that they shouldn't be.
When Laura and Holly first visited Mrs. Knox's home, they were stunned at what they saw.
As soon as we walked into the house, you couldn't really fit through her hallway because they were all to the right-hand side. She could no longer get her shopping trolley down there, which she uses for a walking aid.
When she started replying to the letters and sending off money, Mrs. Knox found herself on a dreaded suckers list, just like Jessica.
Hello, Mrs. Knox. Hello. How are you? Not too bad. Hello. Okay.
Well, I've never won anything in my life, and the fact that I was told I'd won something, I thought, oh, great, it's going to help me out of a mess.
So you were in need of the money as well, really, weren't you?
I was in need of it.
Yeah.
They sent to me something about, oh, you've won so much money. If you send a bit to cover the costs of dealing with it, we'll send you your money.
OK, so
unfortunately, they didn't. Not unless they used invisible cheques, because I never saw them.
Oh, dear.
It's estimated that in the past few years, Mrs. Knox has given away £2,000 to the scammers.
Got me pension and nothing else. To think that I chucked away the money when I badly needed it. I'm a right sucker that way.
The most difficult thing about investigating it is finding out where they're coming from and who are actually sending the mailings as well. There are many different perpetrators out there. They don't all come from one person. There are thousands and thousands of different companies.
Some of the letters sent to Jessica and to Mrs. Knox were blatant examples of illegal scam mail, but it's not always so clear-cut. There are companies who send out mass marketing letters that use clever wording and hidden small print to try and stay on the right side of the law. In 2009, a lady called Doreen was sent this letter by a firm called UK Incentives and Promotions Limited. At first glance, it could have given the impression that she'd won £625,000 by using words like confirmed, guaranteed, and sole recipient. But on closer inspection, the letter was simply inviting Doreen to enter a prize draw, and there was no guarantee of winning anything at all. Doreen decided to report it to East Sussex Trading Standards officer Tom Cook.
What made you report this to us in the first place?
Well, quite honestly, it was too good to be true.
What do you think about this, then? I mean, here it says they've been conducting a nationwide search and you have been identified. So lucky you, lucky you. It's not a mistake. You are confirmed and guaranteed to receive £625,000.
To enter the prize, Doreen had to buy a £20 watch.
She wasn't the sort of person that's going to be taken in by this kind of misleading marketing, but she was reporting it to us because she was concerned that other people receiving such a letter would fall for it and would be misled.
And Tom agreed. He thought the letter was highly deceptive and designed to confuse people into buying the £20 watch. He began investigating and found that unlike many mass marketing firms who were based abroad, UK Incentives and Promotions Limited were in Stockport near Manchester.
We contacted the local trading standards. They had been in contact with the company, but effectively they had not been able to prevent a second wave of letters being sent out.
It turned out the company had already been warned about the wording of their letters, and although they'd made some changes, the mail was still highly misleading. So Tom decided he was going to try and get them in court. Later, we'll see how letters like this deceive people into parting with their cash.
They make out that's how they've selected you. You know, just clever, really, really clever. Sinister but clever.
And Tom has his day in court.
We're prepared to go to court to tell you to stop doing this.
Each and every one of us is at risk from being scammed. It doesn't matter about your age, your job, your situation. They will tailor-make something that's just for you. So, how do you know when you're being targeted by a scam, and how do you avoid it?
Well, that's where a bit of inside knowledge can be a very valuable thing. We've spoken to some of the UK's leading authorities on fraud to build up a picture of what type of person falls for what type of scam. We've created some made-up but realistic characters to show you the results. Today's character is a mum, and like many people in the UK right now, she's struggling with debt.
Mothers are very, very protective of their children. A good scammer would play on that. Think about what it would mean for your children if you lost the house. If we're threatened with loss, we'll often take quite big risks to avoid that loss.
You may know someone just like our worried mum. You may even be her. And if you are, then you could be a prime target for the debt management scam. Here's how and why it works. Our worried mum sees an advert, often in a national newspaper, for a company that claims it can write off most of her debt. But a criminal gang is behind it, and they're trying to draw in people like her who are desperate for a way to get on top of their debt problem. Debt management expert Lee Lester is fed up with these fake firms tainting the reputation of his industry.
Well, these fraudsters will make outlandish claims in their adverts. We can write off 90p in the pound. Impossible. If it was the case, 90% of the population that are in debt would be taking up this offer.
Once they've got our worried parent on the phone, the crooks will try to persuade her that if she sends them an advance fee, they'll talk to her creditors and get a lot of what she owes knocked down or even written off. In her wildest dreams, our mum wouldn't have thought this is possible, and the relief at this solution means she doesn't think straight.
Scammers often rely on our ability to fool ourselves and to suffer from various kinds of illusions.
We've had clients that have paid over money to consolidation companies to the tune of £800–900, only to find out that no money's been passed on to the creditors themselves, and subsequently, again, the client finds himself in a worse situation than they initially started.
Even though they want to get their hands on her money, the crooks know it's better to play the long game. Our parent isn't stupid, and if everything seems too easy, she may get suspicious. They decide to play hard to get and tell her they may not be able to help her out after all.
On the one hand, they want to close the deal as quickly as possible and may put you under pressure to make that happen. On the other hand, there may be some points at which they're drawing things out to deliberately draw you deeper in. One of the ways it might be to actually make you feel like it's not necessarily the case that you'll get access to this opportunity and that you have to qualify. That's all part of the process of hooking you in.
They tell the worried mum that they'll call back with a decision, and they leave her with an anxious wait. Then they ring her back with good news. Her application has been successful. She's so grateful her guard is now down and she stops questioning what they tell her. Before she knows it, she's paid an upfront fee and the scammers have successfully lured another debt-ridden parent into their trap.
What scammers know above all is that if they can motivate you sufficiently, you will do the job of persuading yourself that it's a genuine story. You'll fill in the gaps in the story for yourself.
So, desperate to ease her debt problem and provide for her kids, our worried parent has done what many people would do in the same situation. She's responded to an advert in a national paper. She's been blinded with jargon by a convincing salesman. With the promise of an escape from her debt nightmare, our worried mum has willingly handed over the cash. So, if you or someone near you is in a similar situation, this is what you need to know, so you can choose one of the many reputable debt management firms who are out there.
Do your homework on the company. Any good debt management company will sit down a prospective client and give them what options are available. And if someone is giving you a hard sell and it does look like it's too good to be true, 9 times out of 10, it will be too good to be true.
Your first call should be to an organisation like Consumer Direct or the Citizens Advice Bureau. As for our cash-strapped mum, however miserable her position seems to be, there's always hope, and there are plenty of people out there to help her.
Debt is a horrible thing to go through. However, it's only a glitch in your life. It's not the rest of your life.
So remember, scams are out there for anyone from any walk of life. All you need to do is stay on your guard, and hopefully you won't get scammed. Scam mail has been a growing problem in the UK. These nasty letters appear on the doormat and say you've won a huge amount of cash, but they can only release it to you if you send in a fee first. You'll never get your hands on the prize, but they'll keep stringing you along with more posts asking for more money. And the story of Jessica Look shows just how bad things can get. In the last few years of her life, she was besieged by scam mail, and this disturbing footage filmed by her daughter Marilyn shows the effect it had on both Jessica and those around her. Marilyn wanted the video to be shown in the hope it may prevent other families going through the same thing.
To date, we know of 5 suicides related to scam mail. I'm convinced, totally convinced, that scam mail contributed to my mother's death. I can't say it killed her because she died of pneumonia, but it did contribute.
Once she'd replied to a few of these letters, Jessica's card was marked, and her details were probably sold on to other criminal gangs across Europe. She was then deluged with even more deceptive mail.
She was then obsessing about this mail. She couldn't miss one. If she missed it, she would write to the scammers and apologise and say, can I have another week? I've got no more money.
But surely after 4 years and it never comes, you've got to believe
Don't talk about it anymore. So I wish I'd have it.
You're upsetting me by doing it, so I don't want to see you keep sending your money off every week.
Don't worry about me upsetting you. Think about me being upset when I haven't got much of my life left.
In Portsmouth, Trading Standards officers Laura and Holly found pensioner Mrs Knox in the same state after she'd also got caught up in the vicious cycle of responding to and receiving yet more malicious mail. With so many boxes full of scam letters piled up in her house, she was finding it difficult to move around.
Any more orders come in, they can go and get lost. It's just one ruddy great con. I know I'd like to be alongside of some of them and tell them point blankly what I thought of them.
Mrs Knox and Jessica were receiving up to 30 letters a day. Sifting through the mail reveals the devious methods used to relieve people of their cash.
It's been checked and verified by the NLC disbursement officer. So as a sensible authority, you don't think that that's someone you shouldn't trust.
False testimonials from fictitious winners.
They look like they've been hand-typed, so on like an old-fashioned typewriter. And the fact that it's got like a fake post-it note in someone's handwriting.
Anything that you open, you think, oh, I've won, you know.
It's a sort of prize certificate, so straight away you've got this sort of mind-dazzling amount of money, £7 million.
Your name's in lights.
All these colours, the jazzy letters, the fonts, they draw you in. Most of them will be time deadlined as well, so urgent.
You've got 4 days in which to reply.
It kind of takes away your thought processes and you're more likely to kind of react quite quickly and not consult with your friends or family.
You know, just clever, really, really clever. Sinister but clever.
At the time of her mother's problem, Marilyn didn't know who to turn to. Suspecting the issue was far more widespread than being reported, she started the Think Jessica campaign in her memory and has helped to set up events across the country to let people know.
These criminals are sneaking in through the letterbox. There are elderly people behind closed doors being attacked and being mugged every day. If these people were being mugged out on the street, there'd be an outcry.
Fortunately, Laura and Holly have got to Mrs Knox in time to make a difference.
To solve Mrs Knox's scam mail problem, we assigned her up to the mail preference service and the telephone preference service, which are like filtering systems, so it helps filter through all the junk mail that comes through and the junk telephone calls as well.
For Marilyn and all the agencies tackling scam mail, raising awareness is crucial. And at events like this one in London, people have the opportunity to talk about similar experiences they've had with elderly relatives.
It's practically led to a divorce between her and her husband. They're in their 80s, you know, and they've been married for God knows how many years, a happy marriage. And this has basically led to a lot of anxiety. None of us have really been sure how to go about it. So seeing this is a shock, but it's also kind of a relief in a way, because it means that I know that there are other people who are suffering. It's not just us and it's not just her.
As well as blatant scam mail, there are also companies sending out mass marketing material that they believe is legitimate. In East Sussex, Trading Standards Officer Tom Cook was on the trail of one of these companies because he felt the letters they were sending out were highly misleading.
This is what you were actually buying for your £20. They had bought it for $2.85 per unit. So they're basically selling a very cheap watch at quite a good profit.
Tom was able to investigate UK Incentives and Promotions Limited as they were based in Britain, and he started legal proceedings against them. However, a few weeks into the investigation, the company went into liquidation, owing £280,000, mostly to the taxman.
The company was our initial target, if you like. They disappeared completely, so we were left with going after individual people.
Tom continued pursuing two of the key figures involved with the business, the company director and the marketing manager. He wrote letters asking the two of them to agree to stop sending out misleading and deceptive mail. The company director replied and agreed to Tom's demands.
But what we hadn't got was the marketing manager. He hadn't responded in a similar way, so he had not, at this point, told us that he was going to stop dealing with this type of letter.
So, in November 2009, they took the marketing manager to court and won. He was told to sign a general undertaking that he would stop sending out misleading marketing material for a minimum of 1 year.
So, if he had carried on and disregarded the court's order, then he could go to prison. So that was the result.
It was Doreen's original complaint about the company's scam letter that sparked the investigation into life. Well done, Doreen. If she'd replied, this is what her £20 would have got her.
Oh dear,
That's what they're actually selling you.
The size of my bone structure, I'd be lucky you went round my wrist, quite honestly.
It's a not particularly nice watch.
No.
Tom also gives her the good news.
This is the outcome. They've given a promise to the court that they will obey the law, and they understand that if they don't, they could be sent to prison.
We asked representatives of UK Incentives and Promotions Limited to comment, and this is what their former marketing manager had to say. UK Incentives and Promotions Limited and I were guided by legal counsel with a view to fully comply with legislation in force at the time. Since signing the undertaking, I have not been involved in any marketing that could be seen as contentious. The types of letters received by Jessica and Mrs Knox from foreign companies were deceptive, and some could amount to fraud. This is being taken ever more seriously, and the Metropolitan Police has set up a special unit, Operation Sterling, to deal solely with this type of crime, both at home and abroad.
Well, it is difficult, but it's not impossible. We're working with law enforcement agencies throughout the world and also the postal providers throughout the world, and we're having some significant successes. Earlier this year, we undertook some enforcement activity which had a major impact, reducing some of those letters into victims by 2/3.
It's a very long road. I mean, we've turned a corner, but we're certainly not at the end of the road. This is something that needs to be ongoing. If we drop our defences, the criminals will home in. So we need to keep this hostile environment and keep them out.
For more information about the mail and telephone preference service and advice about scams, go to bbc.co.uk/scammed. Scammers are constantly coming up with new and clever ways to try and get at our cash. So it's important to know what are the latest scams out there that could affect you. Today, we're looking at scams where con men pretend to be from a government department. Cheeky little tinkers.
We've got fraud reports from people trying to be HMRC, Ministry of Justice officials.
Talk me through the Justice Ministry. Why on earth would they be pretending to send me money back? What could I have done?
One of the scams that we've seen is saying that you're a model citizen and you're to be rewarded for the good life that you're living.
I've always said that. I mean, I've been exemplary, to be honest, Steve. Really
yeah, and as a result, you're entitled to a £500 reward for your good service.
About right. That's right.
You know, we can secure this. We're acting on behalf of the Ministry of Justice, so please pay us £50 now, and we will send you this money that you're entitled to.
However nice you are, there is no such thing as a Good Citizen Award or any other kind of award from the Ministry of Justice. Maybe there should be, but there isn't. Sorry, it's a scam.
HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs.
Yes.
How does that scam work?
It's the same principles. They are saying that you've overpaid your taxes. We have looked into this and we've determined that you are entitled to a tax rebate of £5,000. We're acting on your behalf. We will do all the paperwork for you and we will transfer £5,000 to your account. All we need is an administration fee.
Well, anyone that's ever had any dealings with HMRC will know you don't get anything, genuinely, from them.
Again, it would be wrong to say that you don't get things back.
Yes.
There are accountants who do get money back for people, and individuals can get money back. We can all overpay our taxes, but the point you make is HMRC deal with you directly. They don't do it through an agent, and they certainly don't ask for fees in advance.
If you are entitled to a refund, HMRC will never call or email you. They'll notify you with an official letter through the post.
You can be sure that con men and fraudsters will keep coming up with new and sophisticated ways of getting your cash. But armed with a little bit of knowledge, you can stay one step ahead. Stay safe. See you next time.